one last time. Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to an episode of Packcast, the podcast where you don't have to be a Packers fan, but it sure does up. I'm your host, Tom. It's the final week in the regular season, Grossi. And today we are going to be breaking down and predicting every single game in the Week 18 slate. Seriously, back in my day, there was only 17 weeks of football. And last week, I went the Jeff Fisher, 8-8. It was a rough week for me, not just because the Packers got run over by Derrick Henry, but also because I am falling down the rankings in the Pick'em League. I am 168-87 on the season, falling all the way down to 1,217th place. I used to be in the top 300. I used to be something, but now I'm falling apart. But you know who's not falling apart? The four people who are tied for first place with a 180-75 record. One more week to try and claim your glory at the top of the Pick'em League. Let's see if it happens, and let's get into these games. But before we get into the games, I just want to do a big shout out and thank you to you all. We are close to 960,000 subs here on YouTube. We should be hitting that within the next couple of days. So thank you so much for all the support this year. This has been the best year in terms of subscriber growth that I have ever had in my near 11 years on YouTube. So yeah, I know that you could be doing anything else and watching anybody else, but thank you for spending any part of your day here. It means a ton. And yeah, let's go get those million subs in 2026. Starting off with our first Saturday game for the NFC South title, maybe. You got the Carolina Panthers taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Panthers, they couldn't get it done last week against the Seattle Seahawks for a number of reasons. One, the Seattle defense definitely showed up. Bryce Young had a tough day. They couldn't really establish a ton on the ground. And on top of that, J.C. Horn decided to rip somebody's face off at the very end of that game, so that wasn't going to help with a face mask. And for the Panthers, listen, they still have it all right in front of them. They have had a pretty damn fun season, considering that after last season, it was like, all right, there's some optimism about Bryce Young. Maybe he is the guy. And throughout this season, especially early on, there was some doubt. But then the Panthers started to put it together. Then Rico Dowdle started running all over everybody, specifically the Green Bay Packers. Then they were able to beat the Rams. And since then, they go win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. And so this week, they should be winning as they take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who put up yet another stinker in a must-win game last week versus Miami.
I am shocked. Shocked. Well, not that shocked.
And for the Buccaneers, it has been awful. I mean, real bad. The Buccaneers have not only lost their last 4 games, but have lost 7 of their last 8 games. And this is after we were talking about Baker Mayfield being an MVP. It felt like they were getting healthy at the right time, getting guys like McMillan and Evans back. But it has been a rough season. And I know that you are used to these Todd Bowles midseason collapse Buccaneers fans, but this one feels extra bad. And the reason I started off this game saying maybe this is for the NFC South is because even if the Buccaneers wind up winning this game, they are in such a position that because the Falcons won on Monday night against the Rams, if the Buccaneers win and the Falcons win, the Panthers would still win the division. So yeah, this could actually go well for the Buccaneers and they win this game on Saturday and they still don't make the postseason. And I imagine there's going to be some changes in Tampa Bay, and I know Buccaneers fans are holding out for that, whether it's at the head coaching position, whether you're looking at your offensive coordinator. But here, looking at this game, the last time these two teams matched up just a couple of weeks ago, the Panthers were able to get a win. And I got to be honest, I'm going to go with the Panthers again. Not only because it fits the pattern of win-loss, but the Buccaneers, they just look dead in the water right now. I just can't, in good faith, choose them. And even if they wind up winning, like I said, I think there's a good chance that the Falcons beat the Saints. So here, I'm going to go with the Panthers to get the win in the NFC South, winning the division outright. And from there, we'll see what they could do in the playoffs. And for the Buccaneers, yeah, it's been a tough one. Then on Saturday Night Football, should have been Sunday Night Football, you got the Seattle Seahawks taking on the San Francisco 49ers. The Seahawks, as I mentioned, were able to knock off the Panthers last week in a pretty damn good game where they looked pretty balanced besides those freaking turnovers, which I have to imagine they are driving Seattle Seahawks fans insane. But their defense really stepped up. They had a really good game on the ground, getting multiple touchdowns. And even though they can't stop putting the ball on the freaking ground, the Seahawks were able to come away with a pretty decisive win. They're going to be taking on the San Francisco 49ers, who were involved in a shootout with the Chicago Bears on Sunday Night Football, in which neither defense decided to show up on Sunday night, but the 49ers were able to outlast Chicago and get that win. And so now where has this led us? It has led to a showdown for the number 1 seed in the NFC. And the 49ers would especially love that 1 seed and host the rest of their season at Levi's Stadium.
All due respect, you got no fucking idea what it's like being number 1. Every decision you make affects every facet, every other fucking thing.
What is wrong with you?
Now, what's going to be interesting to take a look at is right now, Christian McCaffrey has a stiff back. Trent Williams got banged up in that game against the Bears. And George Kittle will be returning to practice this week, but he will be limited. And it feels like the 49ers are going to need all hands on deck to win this game. Because the Seattle Seahawks, they have a really damn good defense. And I think that's the difference maker here. The 49ers offense has been playing out of its mind. Brock Purdy has been playing incredibly well the past couple of weeks, getting 5 touchdowns in both games, 5 through the air against the Colts, then also utilizing his feet against the Bears, and it really feels like this is going to be a fantastic football game. We'll see if the Seahawks are able to actually get the run going, because the 49ers, they've done a nice job with the run defense. They were able to stop Jonathan Taylor. They didn't really allow Monungai and Swift to really break the game open. And so I think if the Seahawks are going to win this football game, they're going to have to do it through the air, and we'll see how that 49ers offense matches up against that good secondary and defensive line of Seattle. And these two teams, it's been a hot minute since they met, because the last time that they played was back in September, and the 49ers were able to get the win. However, that was a long time ago and many injuries ago. And so taking a look at this game, oh man, this is going to be... I gotta go with the Seattle Seahawks here. And the big reason why is just because I think that defense can neutralize what the 49ers are going to throw at them. If they're able to stop Christian McCaffrey, if George Kittle plays and they're able to neutralize him, and they're able to force Brock Purdy to make some mistakes, I think the Seahawks can take advantage of that. Again, the big difference in this game, I think, is going to be turnovers. If the Seahawks can take care of the football, I think they should be able to win this game. I don't know how successful they're going to be on the ground. So Sam Darnold, we're looking at you to make sure that there's no ghosts. I'm going with the Seahawks to get the win. And if the 49ers do, well, you can take it out on me if you play the Packers again in the playoffs. Then you got the New Orleans Saints taking on the Atlanta Falcons. Who would have thought that at the very end of the season, week 18, you would have these blockbuster NFC South matchups, because the Saints, they are getting shucked out here, as the Saints have won 4 straight games to finish off 2025 and can finish their season on a high note while also helping out the Buccaneers.
I thought I'd die fighting side by side with an elf.
What about side by side with a friend?
Marshawn Lattimore would not be happy. But the Saints, man, there is nothing but a whole lot of optimism going on in New Orleans, because Tyler Shuck, he has been that guy. Their offense has been clicking. Him and Olave have developed this really nice chemistry. The defense has been playing pretty solid, and it feels like for the first time in a long time, there's a whole lot of hope heading into this offseason. Kellen Moore has done a really nice job as their head coach, and considering that it wasn't very long ago that they barely had 2 wins, the fact that now they have 6, yeah, they've really turned things around in New Orleans. They're going to be taking on the Atlanta Falcons, who they've really turned things around as well when they got eliminated from the playoffs, because they keep on freaking winning games. They jumped out to a 21-0 lead against the Rams on Monday Night Football, and while they did eventually lose that lead, they were able to get a 3-point win on Monday night. And now Kirk Cousins in the finale, we'll see what he's going to be able to do against this good Saints team. As I mentioned last week, it was a pretty solid game between the Saints and the Titans. They were able to go back and forth a little bit. The Saints defense played really nice, and it was the wide receiver chemistry that allowed them to take that lead, because Cam Ward, he doesn't have that wide receiver chemistry right now because he doesn't really have any wide receivers. And taking a look at this game, I think it's going to be a good one. It's going to be a matter of can the Saints stop Robinson on the ground because he was a monster against LA. And if they're able to do that, I think the Saints have a good shot of winning this football game. However, I'm actually going to go with the Atlanta Falcons to finish this season strong, getting the win against the Saints. I just think that they have too many weapons on offense for the Saints to contend with. The last time that these two teams played was back in November, and the Falcons were able to get a 24-10 win. But this does seem like it's a different Saints team, so I wouldn't be surprised if New Orleans makes it more competitive. But here, finishing at home, I'm going to go with the Falcons to get the win, meaning that regardless of what happens with the Panthers-Buccaneers game, the Panthers would be NFC South champions. And let's just be honest, considering this division, I don't think anybody would be surprised if the Buccaneers won on Saturday and then they still didn't make the playoffs, because that's just the NFC South. Following that, you got the Cleveland Browns taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. The Browns, they were able to get a big-time win over the Pittsburgh Steelers this past week. No, Myles Garrett did not get the sack record, but because the Steelers were so focused on Myles Garrett, they forgot to actually win the game. They were really missing DK Metcalf this past Sunday, and I know Ravens fans were actually thankful for the Cleveland Browns for once.
Hail the victorious dead!
And for Cleveland, there's a whole lot of rumors going around about Stefanski's tenure. Maybe he is potentially going to get fired on Monday. It has obviously been a disappointing season, a whole lot of QB carouseling, and it just feels like the Browns are stuck in place. Ever since that Deshaun Watson trade, things have not been going well. Shocker. And while they are still boasting a pretty damn good defense, it really feels like even that elite defense has dropped down a few pegs over this last month or so. They're going to be taking on the Cincinnati Bengals, who were able to get a big-time win last week. And their offense, they are firing on all cylinders. But similar to the Falcons, unfortunately, it's too little too late. Whether it's Joe Burrow eating a waffle mid-game or Chase Brown finally deciding to go off and having himself a really nice game, Jamar Chase had a couple of touchdowns. Yeah, it's just going to be a what-if season for Cincinnati, which is very disappointing because I like the Bengals. It just seems like their ownership doesn't. And so here, I'm going to go with the Cincinnati Bengals to get a big-time win at home to finish out the season. Again, disappointing for both these AFC North teams, but it just feels like the Bengals offense is clicking a bit more. And so I imagine Joe Burrow, if he winds up playing, is going to have himself a day, even against this good Browns defense. So yeah, Cincinnati, kitty goes meow, but both these teams going ow. Then you got an NFC North finale between the Green Bay mother-loving Packers and the purple incarnation of Satan, the Minnesota Vikings. The Packers, they got run over by a Derrick Henry on Saturday night as Henry absolutely decimated that defense, a defense which just did not show up at all, as it was one of the most pitiful defensive performances I've seen from Green Bay this year. And they've usually been pretty solid, but over these past few months, when you look at injuries with Devontae Wyatt, no Micah Parsons, things have just been slowly and steadily falling apart, which is great because it's not like we're going to the playoffs or something next week. They're going to be taking on the purple incarnation of Satan, and Max Brosmer was able to take down the Lions with 3 net passing yards. But we all know who his true identity is.
It seems like they shot me chillin', trying to stack 100 million. Girl got $1 billion. What a wonderful feeling.
The Vikings defense has been absolutely insane over this past month. They have been absolutely mauling teams. Van Ginkel has been doing a great job. Brian Flores, there's a whole lot of chatter about if he's going to get a head coaching opportunity after this. And for the Vikings, it's obviously a disappointing season after winning 14 games last year. But there has been at least a little bit of optimism with J.J. McCarthy. And so that's been kind of nice if you're a Vikings fan. It's just going to be a full-on evaluation year next year to see if he's going to be your franchise QB. Unfortunately for the Vikings, they do have a bunch of cap issues heading into next year, so they're going to have to do some restructuring, and I imagine you're going to see some veteran players leaving. Hopefully Justin Jefferson. I know that's not going to happen, but I can hope. And taking a look at this game, you're going to see Clayton Tune for the Packers most likely. We'll see if Jordan Love plays at all, going against Max Brosmer. So this is going to be probably a terrible game. And if I'm being honest, I probably would give the Vikings the win because I think their defense is just significantly better than the Packers right now. And if the Packers have their backups in, I don't think they're going to have a really good shot against Brian Flores and his defense. But hey, This is Packcast, and I haven't picked against the Packers yet, so I'm going with the Green Bay mother-loving Packers to get the win. Who knows? Maybe the defense will show some signs of life, and they'll be dominant in this game, he said with very, very little optimism. But the Packers get the win. Hopefully they play the Bears next week, and God, I mean, it can't look worse than it did Saturday, right? Following that, you got the Dallas Cowboys taking on the New York Giants. The Cowboys, hey, they got a win on Christmas. It was against the Washington Commanders, who had some backups in. And listen, Eberflus still didn't call a good game, and the Commanders basically came back in that game. But hey, they won. Yay! And listen, the Cowboys defense has been atrocious all year because it turns out you can't scheme up pressure. And on top of that, Trayvon Diggs has now been released from the Cowboys. And listen, Trayvon Diggs, he just wanted to go home for the holidays.
Screw you guys, I'm going home. But Cartman, we're trying to... screw you guys, home.
Though considering opposing QBs had a perfect passer rating against him, it feels like he was already home for the holidays back in September. But yeah, it's been a disappointing season for the Dallas Cowboys. Their offense has still been good. George Pickens has been a really nice addition. Javonte Williams has had a solid season. But that defense is so atrociously bad. Yeah, it's tough to accommodate that. And when you have a pretty damn good offense and a really terrible defense, you're not going to win the most amount of games unless it's a shootout every single time. They're going to be taking on the New York Giants, who won unfortunately last week. And so because of their win over the Raiders, that means that they no longer have the number 1 overall pick in the draft. And so there are some Giants fans who are definitely upset about that. But for the Giants, I actually feel like there's a little bit of momentum and there's a little bit of optimism heading into this offseason. Jackson Dart, he's shown some flashes. It'll be really exciting to see Cam Scadaboo back. Also Malik Neighbors, so Jackson Dart actually has somebody to throw to. And on top of that, if they wind up making the correct head coaching hire, it feels like the Giants could potentially be contenders or at least a wild card team next year if they draft well and they hire well. And so taking a look at this game, I'm going to go with the Cowboys to get the win here. I just think they have such a high-powered offense that they should be able to put up points, though I'm not going to sleep on the Giants here because maybe their defense can make a couple of stops, but I just feel like the Cowboys should be able to finish this season strong. We'll see what either of these teams do next year, and we'll see if any of them can take down the Eagles. But for right now, I got the Cowboys winning this game. Following that, an AFC South finale between the Tennessee Titans and the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Titans, they were involved in a fun game against the New Orleans Saints last week, but unfortunately coming up short. And listen, it has been a rough season for Tennessee, but there is some hope in Cam Ward.
The future is bright. Just look at it.
And I've been gushing about Cam Ward on this channel for weeks now because every single week he puts together a mini highlight reel and he is so much fun to watch. And they really just need to invest in their offensive line. They need to go and get some receivers. The defense needs to get better. But the run game has been pretty solid. Tony Pollard, this is the first time in a few weeks where he hasn't rushed for over 100 yards, but if I'm not mistaken, he had over 80 yards in the game against the Saints. And it does feel like if they're able to have a really good offseason similar to the Giants, and if they hire the right head coach, I don't know if they're going to be a wild card contender, but it feels like they could take a big jump in 2026. They're going to be taking on the Jaguars, who have taken a huge jump in 2025. After the midway point where we didn't know about Trevor Lawrence, he wasn't playing well, the offense couldn't put things together. The Jaguars, they put together some really nice performances. They are sitting atop the AFC South. They are still contending for that number 1 seed in the AFC. And while Trevor Lawrence did throw an interception this past week against the Colts, they were still able to get a big time win. And it just feels like this Jaguars team, if Trevor Lawrence can play at this high level, they can beat anybody in this postseason. They were able to knock down the Denver Broncos a couple weeks ago, and I'm really interested to see if the Texans and Jaguars wind up playing, who winds up winning that game in the postseason. But here, the Jaguars, I feel like nothing is going to stop them right now. Like I said, they still have something to play for. They're not going to know the result of the Broncos game until after the afternoon slate. So because of that, I'm going with the Jaguars to get the win over the Titans. And let's see how far these Glitter Kitties can go. Then, yet another AFC South showdown. You got the Indianapolis Colts taking on the Houston Texans. The Colts, Oh boy, it has been a catastrophic fall from grace, and it really just feels like Colts fans have been through the ringer. Heading into this season, I don't think there was a lot of optimism and hope that they were going to be a functioning or good football team. However, it was like maybe Daniel Jones can put something together. And then they did. They won a whole bunch of games. There was a bunch of weeks where they were the best team in football. They had the best record. They had a 98% chance to make the postseason halfway through. And then they started to collapse. And yes, Daniel Jones got hurt, but they started losing with Daniel Jones. And then they call Phillip Rivers. And then Phillip Rivers, while he puts on a fun show, he has not been able to win a game, even though he had a pretty solid game against the Jaguars. And yeah, it has been a real damn tough time for the Colts this year. Eliminated from the playoffs. Now they're going to be taking on the Houston Texans, who, yeah, that Texans defense was pretty damn relentless going after Justin Herbert. The Texans were able to jump out to a big lead against the Chargers with 2 long touchdowns in that first half. And then from there, they didn't really see the end zone anymore. Their field goal unit really coming in handy, but they were able to get away with a win against the Chargers, and it's a big-time win because now they are sitting at the 5 seed in the AFC, and they still have a little bit of hope that if the Jaguars lose and they win, they could still capture the AFC South. And I don't know if that's going to happen because I did predict the Jaguars to win, but the Texans currently hold the longest win streak in the NFL right now. And while things weren't perfect in that second half by any stretch, their defense is going to keep them in a lot of games. And I feel like if there is a dark horse to potentially go to the Super Bowl this year in the AFC, it is the Houston Texans. As long as that offense can play at a high level and CJ Stroud's not turning the ball over, and if he can get a little bit of protection, it feels like they can be a formidable team. Now, of course, with the Texans, you do worry about their lack of run game and their offensive line at times, but they were able to knock down a good Chargers defense, and so that actually gives me a lot of hope going forward for them in these playoffs. So here, I'm going to go with the Texans to finish the job, get yet another win under their belt, and head into the playoffs with a whole lot of momentum. And from there, we'll see what the Strouds can do. Then you got the New Jersey Jets taking on the Buffalo Bills. The Jets, they got their ass kicked by the New England Patriots. That was woof. Drake May threw for 5 touchdowns on them, and I've given the Jets a little bit of credit. After trading away Quinnen Williams and Sauce Gardner, they still put together some decent defensive performances, but that was nowhere to be found this past Sunday. And their offense, well, yeah, you've been watching. They're going to be taking on the Buffalo Bills, and they had a close game with the Philadelphia Eagles, and it was a great comeback attempt. But unfortunately, Josh Allen let his fans down with that missed 2-point conversion.
But I learned an important lesson. You can't count on anyone, especially your heroes.
I mean, the entire offense let their fans down because did you see that first half? Getting shut out 13-0 by a very good Eagles defense. It was a pretty poor performance, even though it was raining buckets in Orchard Park on Sunday. There was a lot of things working against the Bills. But unfortunately, that kind of seems to be the theme this season. If they're not able to get things going with their offense, with James Cook on the ground, it does feel like that offense can stall out. But I do have to give a lot of credit to that Bills defense because they were able to shut out and shut down the Eagles in that second half. And hey, like I said, they were able to rally and almost win that football game. So the Eagles, they're a solid team, even though Kevin Patullo is their offensive coordinator. It just feels like the Bills are going to be heading into the playoffs at that 7 seed, which who knows? Maybe they can make some noise and maybe even get some revenge against the New England Patriots. And taking a look at this game, it's the last game being played in Orchard Park this season. And if I'm not mistaken, this is also probably the last game that's going to be played in that Bills old stadium as they're going to be moving into the new stadium next year. And so I imagine they're going to be going out with a win, being able to knock off the Jets. And from there, it's going to be a battle, but let's see if they can go all the way this time. Then you got the NFC North showdown between the Detroit Lions and the Chicago Bears. The Lions, that was embarrassing. The Lions were fighting for their playoff lives. And listen, as of right now, if they won that game, there would still be hope for them. But yeah, they lost against Max Brosmer in a pitiful offensive performance. And this has not been the first time this has happened to the Lions this season. Their run game at times has completely and totally stalled out. There's been turnovers, and it has just been a very rough season for the Lions, who not only finished in first place in the division last year, but they were first in the NFC, and now they are currently in last place in the NFC North. They're going to be taking on the Chicago Bears, who, as I mentioned, they lost in a shootout with the 49ers on Sunday, and that Bears offense was hot all night, but they just ran out of time at the very end. And fortunately for the Bears, Luther Burden, who went down at the very end of that game, he seems to have not suffered a significant injury, so that is going to be good for the Bears' playoff run because they are going to need him. And the Bears, they're still playing for something here. They're currently sitting at the second seed in the NFC, and a win here would guarantee their spot in the second seed, which would mean that they will be getting a rematch against the Green Bay mother-loving Packers in the wild card round. And I mean, it's been an insane season for Chicago. Their offense has developed really nicely. Ben Johnson has been the guy. Caleb Williams has had a nice year. He still has an opportunity to hit that 4,000 yard marker, which no Bears QB has ever done before. And it will be tough against this Lions defense, don't get me wrong, because that Lions defense still showed up against Max Brosmer. It was just their offense that didn't show up. And I think that this could wind up being a shootout, being played at Soldier Field outside in the elements. We'll see if that Bears defense can continue to be opportunistic and cause some turnovers. If they do, I think they should be able to get the win here, though I don't think the Lions are going to make it easy. I'm going to go Chicago to get the win, setting up that round 3 matchup between Green Bay, and from there, we'll see who wins. Then you got what could have been a good game, but it's not going to now. You got the LA Chargers taking on the Denver Broncos. The Chargers, having a tough loss against the Houston Texans this past Saturday. And while, again, their defense did not show up in the first quarter, they showed up for the remainder of that game. And unfortunately, they just could not put it together at the end, whether it was the special teams, and you had Cameron Dicker missing an extra point and a field goal, which is very uncharacteristic, or you had a terrible game for the punting unit, or balls going right through Gadsden's hands. Yeah, it was just not a great game on Saturday. But fortunately for the Chargers, they are still in the playoffs, and so they have some chances at redemption. Unfortunately for the Chargers, though, the Broncos were able to get a win on Christmas Day, and so because the Chargers lost, the Broncos, they already won the division. And on top of that, Trey Lance is going to be suiting up against the Broncos, so I can't imagine Chargers fans are too invested in this game.
And if you start to win, I go on my phone. I have no problem being on my phone for hours and hours. I love my phone. I even have an alarm on my phone.
Justin Herbert will be sitting on Sunday, which I think is the right decision because have you seen that offensive line? Not only did he get mauled by the Texans defense, but he's been getting destroyed behind that O-line all freaking season. As they take on the Denver Broncos, who, as I mentioned, won in a very close game against the Kansas City Chiefs third-string QB. But more importantly, they were able to win the division. And with a win this week, they will be able to clinch that #1 seed in the AFC. And similar to the Bears, man, what a hell of a turnaround for the Broncos. They've been riding high on that fantastic defense, and while that defense has not been the best over the past few weeks, they've still been able to put together a bunch of wins. RJ Harvey has emerged nicely in J.K. Dobbins' absence, and Bo Nix, when he's on, dude, he can look like a pretty damn good quarterback, and honestly, we're just going to throw it all together in the playoffs, and we'll see how for real the Broncos actually are. But here, being played in Denver, as I mentioned, no Herbert starting, and the Broncos are still playing for something. I got the Broncos getting the win here, but who knows? They had a very close matchup against the Chiefs with their backup QB. Maybe Trey Lance can make it a close one too. Then you got the Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Las Vegas Raiders. The Chiefs, they kept it close, man. You can't fault them for that. Their defense played well against the Broncos, and they had time at the end. Unfortunately, not able to connect in the end zone, and the Chiefs wound up losing that game in what could be Travis Kelce's last game at Arrowhead. And for the Chiefs, it's just been a disappointing season, man. Patrick Mahomes, of course, getting injured at the end of the year. On top of that, the offensive line at times, they've been dealing with injuries and lack of protection for Mahomes. Their trenches over on the defensive line, that hasn't looked good. And yeah, it is just been a very lackluster season considering this team just went to the Super Bowl and now they are going to be out of the playoffs. They're going to be taking on the Raiders, who are so damn close to locking up the #1 overall pick.
No, it's been a long fight. It's been a long fight, and I just had to have a warrior spirit, and that's all.
The Raiders shutting down Max Crosby and Brock Bowers on that squad, and yeah, the result, the Raiders are not going to be playing really good football. But then again, even when they had their starters this year, they haven't been playing very good football. The one silver lining is that Ashton Genty at times has shown, hey, this is why you drafted this guy. But their run game, which was terrible last year, really wasn't great this year. They need a quarterback. They need an offensive line. They need more weapons. They need a lot of things. And who knows, maybe this is going to be Pete Carroll's last game as the Raiders head coach. And looking at this game, I could actually see this be competitive. We'll see how Oladokin plays for the Chiefs, as he did a pretty decent job against the Broncos defense. And the Raiders defense is not the Broncos defense. So here, I'm actually going to go with the Chiefs winning and ending the season on a high note, any kind of high note that they can have. They should still have a pretty high draft pick, but this would mean that the Raiders have the number 1 overall pick in the draft. And from there, let's see whoever they draft if they can save that team. Then you got the Arizona Cardinals taking on the LA Rams. The Cardinals. Yeah, it's been a horrible season. I'm so sorry. And while the Cardinals are picking the new pope, yeah, there has been no papal intervention here because it has been a rough year. They are getting blown out left and right, whether it was against the Bengals or any other team that's coming into town. Yeah, it's been ugly. They need to fire their offensive coordinator. They need to get probably a new quarterback, and we'll see what they do with Kyler Murray. But overall, yeah, it's been a rough year for my dark horses. They're going to be taking on the LA Rams, who had a really damn tough night against the Atlanta Falcons. As I mentioned, we're down 21-0, but we're able to claw their way back into that game. Jared Verse blocked a field goal, returned it for a touchdown, but ultimately they were unable to get the win against the Falcons. And for the Rams, they're locked in at either the 5 or 6 seed in the NFC, so it's not the biggest of deals in terms of the standings. However, after the Rams saw Matthew Stafford throw 3 interceptions on Monday night, McVay might be keeping an eye out again for their next franchise QB.
And you, young Skywalker, we will watch your career with great interest.
And for the Rams, there's definitely been some signs of weakness the past couple of weeks. Of course, they lost that thriller against the Seattle Seahawks where they blew a big-time fourth quarter lead. And now this past Monday, all those turnovers, it's just not the way you want to be going into the playoffs, though I do think they are still one of the most balanced teams in the NFC. And taking a look at this game being played at home, the Rams really shouldn't have any problems with the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals, I just don't believe in them in a whole lot, and I think the Rams defense should be able to cause some issues in the backfield. And on top of that, as long as Matthew Stafford's not throwing any interceptions, the Rams should be able to get this big-time win, and from there, we'll see how good they look in the playoffs. Following that, you got the Miami Dolphins taking on the New England Patriots. The Dolphins, they were able to get a big-time win last week, which that doesn't happen very often, so congratulations. They get to feel some joy and hope again after knocking down the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The one bright spot for the Dolphins all year has been Devin Achane, as he has been really damn good on the ground. And on top of that, Quinn Ewers didn't look too bad either. We'll see what Ewers can do against this Patriots defense, as the Patriots, they continue to rock and roll as they were able to blow out the Jets last week. And Drake May had absolutely no mercy for the Jets, especially after that cheap shot.
I killed them. I killed them all.
Drake May throwing for 5 freaking touchdowns. And as I mentioned, with Matthew Stafford's performance on Monday night, who knows? Maybe Drake May could be now in first place for MVP considerations. As of right now, the Patriots are the 2 seed in the AFC. They have an opportunity to get the 1 seed if the Broncos wind up losing and the Patriots wind up winning. But again, that is going to be tough, as Justin Herbert is going to be sitting. And this being played in Foxborough, maybe it's going to be a competitive game. We'll see what happens with Mike McDaniel after this matchup, and we'll see if he's still going to be with Miami. But here, I can't pick against the Patriots. I just think they are the better team. And while the Dolphins have shown up for at least one half on defense, I just think that there's going to be a little bit too much offensive firepower here for the Patriots. So because of that, I am going to go with New England to get the win, and we'll see if the evil empire can take hold and get to the Super Bowl once again. Then you got the Washington Commanders taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. The Commanders, honestly, not even their worst loss in December. With all their backups in, they were able to fight their way back and at least make it a competitive game against the Cowboys on Christmas. But they're another squad where it has been just a really depressing season. Jaden Daniels hasn't been healthy. Scary Terry has been hurt. That defense hasn't been good. And considering they went to the NFC Championship game this past January, yeah, it is a bit of a fall from grace. We'll kind of see what they look like next season with everybody back and healthy, and then we'll have to see where adjustments can be made. If they're able to nail some draft picks and in free agency get some guys on defense, I'll feel a little bit better about Washington, but as of right now, Wildflower be sad. They'll be taking on the Philadelphia Eagles, who, honestly, after seeing that game against the Buffalo Bills, they might just have to keep on relying on that defense.
I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you.
Their defense is playing incredibly well, except when they're getting run over by the Bears, but that hasn't happened in a little bit. And for the Eagles, they are still fighting for the 2 seed as they currently are sitting at number 3. And if they're able to win and the Lions are able to knock off the Bears, they will be hosting the Packers yet again, which is not what I want. So hopefully that does not happen. And taking a look at this game, yeah, even though sometimes these Commanders-Eagles matchups are very close, I have to imagine the Eagles are going to win this football game. If Saquon Barkley can establish the run, or if that defense can constantly get after the Commanders, they should be able to hold on to a win. The question is can that Eagles offense be uplifted by the defense in the postseason, and can they get back to the Super Bowl? I think they have the defense to do it. We'll find out about that offense, but as of right now, Eagles win, and we'll see how the chips fall. Then finally, on Sunday Night Football, you got the Baltimore Ravens taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Ravens snapping their losing streak, and of course it's against my team, by running all over the Green Bay Packers. John Harbaugh, who is fighting for his coaching life, was like, you know what? Maybe we should give it to our best player on offense. Crazy things happen. They dominated the Packers. On top of that, Lamar Jackson is going to be practicing this week, and so that makes it hopeful for him to return on Sunday night, as they're going to be taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers, who, yeah, that was a tough game against the Cleveland Browns. And as I mentioned, Myles Garrett didn't get the sack record, but they kept throwing it to MV frickin' frackin' S, and it was a rough game for that offense as they desperately needed DK Metcalf to be in that game. And I have to imagine that Steelers fans are probably not too happy that both games did not go their way when they could have locked up the AFC North.
This is a conspiracy. That's what this is. One big damn conspiracy.
And taking a look at this game, this could go either way. The Steelers at times have had the Ravens number. I know the Ravens were able to win a couple of games the past year, but this year the Steelers were able to get away with a close win. And honestly, I think the difference maker is going to be who can establish the run. Both these teams have pretty good run defenses. The Steelers are currently ranked 12th in run defense, so I don't think that Derrick Henry is going to be able to run all over Pittsburgh like he did Green Bay. But I think the difference maker here is going to be the lack of DK Metcalf. You saw that last week in Aaron Rodgers constantly targeting MVS, and they really missed his presence on the field, because where you can take advantage of the Ravens defense is in their secondary, and if they just don't have guys to throw to, it may be a very long night for Pittsburgh. And so because of that, I'm going to go with the Baltimore Ravens to get the win here, fulfilling the prophecy that the Steelers go 9-8. This could very well be Aaron Rodgers' last primetime game. Hell, it could be his very last game. We'll see if he's going to wind up coming back next season. And like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if the Steelers win this football game. I just think the lack of DK Metcalf is going to be the difference maker here, because if they're not able to pass efficiently, the Ravens should be able to win this football game. And especially if Lamar Jackson plays, I feel a little bit better about Baltimore here. So because of that, I'm going with the Ravens to get the win. And Steelers, you go to the 9-8 Super Bowl. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. How do you see these games shaking out? This is it, folks. After this, we got the frickin' frackin' playoffs. There are not many games left. Thank you again so much for all the support this year. I wish you and yours nothing but a very, very happy new year. And I'll see you in 2026. For all these crazy postseason games. You can always find me at TomGrossiComedy.com, and a big shout and thank you to all the Patreon and YouTube members for supporting this channel. And thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi, and as always, go Pack Go.